Order, members. We resume, and it's Ministers for the Communities question time. I call David Honeyford.
Mr Speaker, Casement Park is the third and final project of the Regional Stadia programme, and funding was agreed by the Executive 14 years ago. I met with Jarlath Burns, President of the GAA, alongside senior representatives from Ulster GAA, including Brian McAvoy, Director and CEO, on the 31st of October 2024 to discuss how the redevelopment of Casement Park could be taken forward. However, the executive commitment from 2011 remains.
Mr Honeyford.
Thank you, Minister. That meeting happened back in October. Has the Minister met with the UK Government since that to discuss the level of funding the Treasury might make available? And if that meeting's happened, can you give us an update on that?
I haven't met with the UK Government, but I have written to the Secretary of State asking for an update on the Government's view of the project.
Melissa McHugh.
Thank you, Minister, for your statement so far. Just in relation to that, Minister, we know that last year was a very, very busy year for teams involved in the Casement Park project and so on. But have you any meetings scheduled in the diary for 2025 with the Ulster GAA and other key partners as part of your department's duty to support the Casement Park redevelopment?
Sir.
Well, look, let me make something very clear when it comes to Casement Park, is that I have fulfilled the requirements that are upon me. I have certainly met with the groups that are involved in this, and the pledge that the Executive made in 2011 remains. But it is worthwhile remembering that this has been a very long process, and there are some in this chamber that have repeatedly tried to lay the blame for the lack of progress at the feet of unionist ministers. I would remind the House once more that it was not me that took a judicial review in order to get the planning permission quashed. It was not me or my actions that resulted in a committee inquiry around safety certificates for Casement Park. It was not the actions of myself that led to a 2015 Cabinet Office report that revealed chaos behind the stadium project. But that report did say that problems have been exacerbated by the fact that relationships between key stakeholders are broken. It was not me that said, we will find the money, don't you worry about that. So I understand the frustrations that many people feel in relation to this project. However, the fact remains that there is a funding gap between what is on the table and the money that has actually been pledged. Our commitment from 2011 remains, and I remain willing and open to meet with and work with those that want to see the project progressed.
Brooks.
Thank you, Mr Speaker. A number of sports clubs in my constituency are looking forward to the potential of having their grounds redeveloped and improved. To that end, could I ask the Minister for an update on the Northern Ireland Football Fund?
Minister.
Yes, the Northern Ireland Football Fund was another key element of that executive agreement, and I'm pleased to tell the House that we will be opening applications very soon. This is a key milestone in this programme. I want to see that happen and believe we will be able to open applications by the end of this month, and I hope that that sends a message to all clubs that we recognise the need that exists and that this fund is just the beginning.
Justin McDulty.
On Casement Park, the Minister will know that the period between now and the end of March is critical for this iconic bellwether project. Yesterday it was 4 months since the HM Treasury announcement. You met Uachtaráin Cumann Lucas Gill, Jarlath Burns and Ulster GAA in October, and it appears we are no further forward. Since Casement Park is a priority for your department and a flagship project for the Executive, can the Minister list the organisations and people he has met or corresponded with regarding the funding of our new world-class stadium in the heart of West Belfast, and when he believes the project will be moved forward?
Well, Mr Speaker, I have already outlined who I have met with and the meeting that took place in October and the correspondence that I have had with the Secretary of State, but we do need a little bit of realism here. The issue is the funding gap that exists. That is the problem. So there either needs to be an additional contribution of funds, or there needs to be a more modest proposal, or we need to look at both. I'm happy to have those conversations and discussions, but as I've said repeatedly, the commitment that remains from 2011 still stands.
Colin Crawford.
Speaker, and can I thank the Minister for his answers thus far? Minister, can I ask how much has been spent to date, both on the redevelopment of Casement Park and also the Northern Ireland Football Fund?
I don't have the exact figures for Casement Park at this time. I'm happy to provide that information to the member. And of course, there's been very little spent in relation to the Football Fund, though we have been able to give some financial support to those clubs who are developing business cases. I've no issue giving the member that information. I just don't have it in front of me.
Mr. Speaker, Minister, will you give a clear commitment here today that the GAA will not receive more than its fair share of funding when compared with the money already awarded to football and rugby?
I think I've said on a number of occasions that there was an agreement made in 2011, and that was on the basis of fairness. That was on the basis of all of the sports who had identified their needs getting a share of that money. And certainly Windsor Park has received the money that it was promised, the same for Ravenhill. I look forward to distributing the money for the football fund, and as I've said, the commitment remains for Casement Park as well. And I think it is important that when we are allocating resources, that it is done on a fair and on an equitable basis, and that's what I will do during my time in office.
Andy Allen. Minister.
Mr. Speaker, my officials are continuing their work on the development of the Executive's anti-poverty strategy, which will aim to minimise the risks and impact of poverty, including child poverty. My department is currently engaging with officials from all departments to discuss the development of the strategy, and I'm encouraged by the reports of progress to date. Discussions have focused on the delivery of a range of key actions which will help mitigate impacts, reduce the risk of falling into poverty, and support all those impacted, including children and their families, to exit poverty. I will bring a draft strategy to the Executive in early 2025 for their consideration, and following Executive agreement of this paper, the strategy will be subject to public consultation prior to its final publication. Of course, in addition, my department plays a vital and ongoing role in providing social security and housing support, as well as supporting people through our work with the voluntary, community, culture, heritage, language, arts and sports sectors.
Mr. Allen.
Mr. Speaker, and can I thank the Minister for his answer. Minister, you'll no doubt recall the Public Accounts Committee recent report where it highlighted a number of stark failings on the child poverty strategy. What steps is the Minister taking to ensure that those same failings aren't repeated, such as it not being fully costed, not being sufficiently targeted and not properly working with all stakeholders?
That's why I have been doing the work, and my officials have been doing the work with other departments over the last number of months to make sure that that's not a situation that we fall into again. It's why we have taken our time to try and make sure that we get the strategy right, that we have actions that are actually deliverable, and most importantly, make a real difference in the lives of people that we all represent. I am pleased I've gone farther than any minister has in the past in terms of progressing an anti-poverty strategy. It was a promise that was made in 1998, and it's one that I look forward to delivering and bringing through the Executive so that we can actually make a difference.
Thank the Minister. Minister, almost 1 in 4 children now live in poverty, and many families continue to struggle to afford basic essentials. Can you referred to early 25 there, can you give us the very latest date by which the Executive will have an anti-poverty strategy to consider?
Well, it's my hope that this strategy will get out as soon as possible, and that's what I am trying to do. However, for me, the most important thing is that it is something we can actually get buy into, and that we have all executive departments signed up to with actions that we can actually progress. But certainly I want to have this passed by the Executive and out to consultation by the end of this financial year, but certainly the sooner the better.
Jonathan Buckley.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Every form of poverty is a stain on any nation. So would the Minister agree with me that a Labour government whose policies have made pensioners poor, made farmers poor, made businesses poor, and killed growth in the UK economy in the meantime, will do absolutely nothing in regards to creating the sustainable, healthy economy that we need to tackle these major issues facing our society?
Absolutely, Mr. Speaker, I do agree, and I think you only have to look at the policies of this Labour government to realise that it will not do anything to help with poverty. We have policies that are damaging growth. That means less money for public services. We have policies that are driving up inflation and driving up costs, which will make it more likely that people fall into poverty. And we are also damaging business as well. And it is through business that we have job creation, and that is what is going to be so important, and that's what's going to be central to the anti-poverty strategy, is the ability for people to get into work, because work is the greatest tool that we have to combat poverty in Northern Ireland. And unfortunately, the actions of this government have meant that it's more difficult to create jobs and to create wealth. Not only that, the policies are also targeting the voluntary and community sector as well. Organisations that do so much to stop people from falling into poverty and to give people the skills and the abilities that they need in order to get out. For my part, I will do what I can to make sure that we have growth, to make sure that we have prosperity in Northern Ireland, but the government should seriously rethink the policies that it is putting in place, which is so damaging to the economy and therefore so damaging to people, not just in Northern Ireland, but right across the United Kingdom.
Bradshaw.
I was going to get in. Thank you, Minister, for your answer so far. I would just be grateful if you could confirm if the anti-poverty co-design group has been involved up to this point and what role you would see them playing going forward over the next few months. Thank you.
Sir.
Of course, the co-design group had a very important role to play as the strategy was developed, and certainly before I came into office. I look forward to being able to consult with them again throughout this process. However, for me, what is important now is making sure that we finalise the draft strategy, get it to the executive, get it out for consultation to ensure that people can have their say, and then importantly, implement it, get on with it, and deliver for people in Northern Ireland.
Matthew O'Toole.
Mr. Speaker, Minister, you want to get on with it? I would encourage you to get on with it. We've now been back for nearly a year. We haven't seen the anti-poverty strategy yet, but I'm encouraged that you say it's going to be published, you say, before the end of the financial year. Can I ask, if it's so important, why wasn't it mentioned in the programme for government, and will it be included in the final programme for government?
Minister.
Well, certainly I don't agree with him that the issue of poverty isn't found in the draft programme for government. I think that you only need to look at a number of the actions that the executive have put forward, which will have a real and meaningful impact in terms of tackling poverty, whether that's creating more jobs, whether that's improving our education system, improving access to healthcare, which is actually a huge drag on people getting in to work and therefore combating poverty. But we have listened to what people have said. I understand the need that many have expressed to have that in lights up front within the programme for government. We look forward to being able to finalise the programme for government and show the commitment that the executive has to tackling issues like this.
Question 3.
Minister.
Mr. Speaker, universal credit can support claimants in self-employment when this is their best route to financial independence. The minimum income floor is broadly a notional amount of earned income that is used to calculate a person's UC award. It applies to those in gainful self-employment and whose business has been running for more than 12 months. It does not apply in all cases. For example, it doesn't apply to claimants who are in the 12-month start-up period, who are not gainfully self-employed, and during the first 12 months of having been moved to UC from legacy benefits. Universal credit work coaches and case managers provide support to those who are self-employed to make and maintain their claim, and the support provided includes information on work allowances, taper rate, the childcare element, and my department's advisor discretion fund, which provides a non-repayable grant of up to £1,500 to help unemployed and self-employed people overcome the financial barriers to starting or returning to work.
Your response. Minister, do you accept that some individuals and farmers rely solely on seasonal work for their income and as a result earn less than the minimum income floor? What can the Minister do in such cases to support those individuals whose income may fluctuate over a period of time?
Minister.
Yes, I am aware of this issue because I've had correspondence from the member and from Mrs Erskine as well, so I assume that there are many people in Fermanagh and South Tyrone that have been affected by this. The member will be aware that this is a result of policy change in the Department for Work and Pensions, and in many ways our hands are tied. However, I will be continuing to express concern over this to the Department for Work and Pensions and stand ready to help in whatever way I can, but we do need to recognise the rules that are applying to this across the United Kingdom.
Thank you, and I thank the Minister for his answers so far. Like the Minister, I know the value of farmers within our rural communities and throughout Northern Ireland, and the labour policies that they have put in place are really driving farmers into poverty. And it's very simple: no farmers, no food. And I would just like to know, in terms of the practical support that would be coming from the Minister's department and what he can advise farmers can do in relation to the breadline that they are facing.
Minister.
Grateful to the member for raising that issue with me as well. She will be aware of the cross-nation approach that is taken in regards to benefits and welfare. However, I want to make sure that we are as helpful as possible, and senior officials have met representatives from the UFU and Rural Support to offer them any additional help or support that they can, and they certainly remain willing to engage and meet again if that would be helpful. I'm more than happy to link my officials up with the member and her constituents, or in any way in which that might be beneficial as well, and I'm also happy to work with the member so that we can increase awareness of the support that is available to claimants.
Thank the Minister as well. Minister, just in the instances of people who are self-employed, such as those in the farming community, that bridge of 5 weeks, which can be until eligibility is established for UC, can be indeed very painful, financially very painful. So could you advise just here of the elements of welfare support that are available in those instances to help people with that bridging gap of 5 weeks?
Yes, well, there is help that is available from my department, and I've already raised the issue in relation to the Advisor Discretion Fund and the money that is available there to help those that are both unemployed and self-employed. I'll be happy to share the details directly with him. And again, we are largely constrained by the rules that are set down and in place by DWP, but where we can give additional support, assistance, guidance and sometimes just advice, we will of course do that.
Andrew McMurray.
Speaker, and thank you to the Minister. Has the Minister considered targeted exemptions or adjustments to the referenced minimum income floor, again to the self-employed, rural farmers and seasonal workers?
Minister.
Certainly something that we're happy to raise directly with the Department for Work and Pensions, but he will be aware that any way in which we deviate from the rules that currently exist does come with administrative and other costs for the department that can be very hard for us to bear. But certainly this is an issue we'll continue to raise with DWP and see what additional support they may be able to provide or what adjustments they could make to help in those situations. I think that when it comes to such a large and complicated welfare and benefit system, we should always do what we can to try and make the process as simple and as straightforward for people, and I'm happy to work with the member on that.
Keith Buchanan. Please, Minister.
Mr. Speaker, the Musical Instruments Programme is a capital investment programme delivered by the Arts Council on behalf of my department. It's designed to increase the quality of music making in Northern Ireland by helping musicians replace older, worn-out instruments and purchase new and additional ones. The programme has 3 strands: for individuals, for bands and for professional and non-professional performing groups. In December, I was pleased to be able to allocate an additional £323,000 to support the programme, and with this additional investment, all eligible applicants were able to be supported. That was 119 grants to 75 bands, 13 professional and non-professional performing groups, and 31 professional musicians. That involves over 4,500 people in total. And the range of recipients this year, from marching bands and school groups to traditional musicians and musical societies, is impressive, and I hope that the grants will support and inspire the next generation of musical talent across the genres.
Mr. Buchanan.
Thank you, Minister, so far for your answer. Minister, I want to thank the Minister for your efforts in supporting these bands and individuals, for this support is greatly needed. And can I ask you to ensure that this support will go further in the years that follow ahead to give a continued support for this, the marching bands and individuals? And can you provide a more accurate update on the impact this has had on marching bands and individuals?
Minister.
I'm grateful to the member for his comments, and I do want to make sure that we can continue the funding of this programme for the simple reason that I want to make sure that more people in Northern Ireland get involved in the arts, stay involved in the arts and benefit from the arts, because I believe that the arts can provide a huge benefit for our people, especially younger people as well. And I also want to make sure that we get arts funding right across Northern Ireland, that we don't limit it to the same places as regularly get arts funding. And to that end, I'm pleased to tell the member that in the Mid-Ulster constituency there were 13 bands and 2 professional and non-professional performing groups that were able to receive funding, and that was over £100,000 of funding for the member's constituency.
Armstrong.
Mr. Speaker, and thank you very much, Minister. Minister, I think no one can deny that musical instruments from bands has been very successful, but I was wondering if you could confirm if there's the potential to allow charities who work with groups of musicians, for example, the charity Beyond Skin, who make musical instruments available to people, for instance, like the Afghan Women's Solidarity Group, who escaped the Taliban, who barred them from music, if that type of group would be able to apply.
Minister.
Certainly I want to make sure as many people as possible are involved in the arts, take part in the arts and have the financial support to do that as well. I would have thought that groups like the one that she would have mentioned would have been eligible under the professional or non-professional group element. If that is not the case, I will certainly confirm that with her, and I'm more than happy to work alongside the Arts Council to make sure that we're getting more funding into these sorts of programmes that actually do make a difference and, importantly, allow more people to take part, and that's what we should all be wanting to see.
Good, Nigel.
Please, Mr. Speaker.
As the principal funding and development body for the arts in Northern Ireland, the Arts Council is tasked with distributing funding on behalf of my department and is also a distributing body for National Lottery monies. It is my assessment that despite the constrained position in the current financial year, the Arts Council continues to make a positive difference across a range of areas such as social inclusion, health, education, regeneration, justice, place shaping and tourism. I'm also going to continue to make the case to executive colleagues to recognise the benefits the arts provide to them in delivering on their responsibilities. It is my assessment, however, that government cannot wholly support the arts sector by itself, and there are a range of funding sources that need to complement government funding, and we're also exploring options for private and philanthropic investment opportunities. In short, Mr. Speaker, I don't believe that the arts get the level of funding that they deserve or that they require, but I am working on that to increase the level of funding because I know the impact that the arts have right across Northern Ireland and how it actually helps other government departments in how they are delivering public services as well, because I believe that funding of the arts is actually an investment in people and our services across Northern Ireland.
Ms. Nicholl.
I thank the Minister for his answer and wholeheartedly agree that our arts are underfunded and the wide spread recognition. Akin to how the Department of the Economy has funded other arms-length bodies at their year-end total with in-year monitoring rounds, is this something that the Minister would be agreeable to looking at in terms of the Arts Council to put in place a similar agreement so that we can adequately allow the Arts Council to plan and budget for programming for the year ahead? Thank you.
I certainly have used the monitoring process over the course of my time in office to make sure that additional funding is made available to the Arts Council. I did that both in terms of resource and capital this year, and I think that we do see the results of that. And I'm certainly always keen to ask for more in the monitoring rounds and make sure that we have the resources that we need. But I think that we need more than just that funding within the arts right now. I think what we also need is a very clear policy framework. That's what I'm bringing forward under the new arts policy. I have protected the budget allocation that we had last year. We are in an environment where I had to find savings of £119 million, but the Arts Council budget was maintained. Now I know that compared to other regions that's still small. That's why I have been able to bid for and receive money in monitoring rounds where I have allocated additional capital funding as well. I have also been exploring philanthropic avenues for investment as well, and my recent visit to the US has actually opened a few doors there which I look forward to exploring. I was pleased to have the Arts Roundtable also where we could set out some of the issues, challenges and how we approach those, but certainly I have the commitment to continuing to fund the arts and to highlight to executive colleagues the benefits of proper funding of the arts.
Ciara Ferguson.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker, and can I thank the Minister for his answers thus far. Minister, last November we attended, like yourself, with Equity and we heard from Equity members on the huge challenges, particularly within the North West, and we heard from local artists within Derry how it's really, really difficult now to be able to remain in the field and be an artist and likewise live at home. We are exporting our local talent, and I welcome here today where you have mentioned that you are working on and exploring a range of options to increase the funding. Within that process, how will the Department seek to ensure a regional balance for funding opportunities within Derry and across the North West? Thank you.
I think that regional balance is very important when it comes to the arts, and that's why I have been so keen on the musical instrument fund, because that has gone to communities right across Northern Ireland and hasn't been limited to particular geographical areas. So I look forward to working with the Arts Council to ensure that we can make sure that that funding is getting to where it is needed and to where it will make the most difference.
On for South.
Thank the Minister for his answers so far. Minister, there has been a feeling for a long time that the arts has been very Belfast-centric, and building on the previous answer, would the Minister agree with me that regional balance right across Northern Ireland is important within the arts sector, especially in areas of the country that are very rural, like my constituency of South Down?
Yes, that's absolutely the case, and again, I'm happy to tell the member that part of the extra allocation that we made in terms of musical instrument funding went towards her constituency, and in the Newry, Morning Down council area we were able to allocate between bands and between professional and non-professional groups and individuals funding of over £110,000. I often feel that rural areas have missed out when it comes to arts funding in the past. It's a key priority for me, coming from a rural area, and I've asked officials to begin work to identify programmes and activities that can ensure that we are supporting rural areas like South Down.
And further to that last answer to my constituency colleague, maybe I'll take up the guitar or something if there's money for instruments in South Down. But to the question before that, would the Minister be aware of what percentage of the Arts Council funding goes to Belfast City Council area as in compared to other areas?
I have recently seen those figures, but I don't have them with me, so I can certainly provide those. But I have to say it is a significant amount of money. I am a fan of Belfast, do not get me wrong, but I want to see other areas get money as well, and that's why I'm looking for additional resource in this area. I'm happy to provide that information for him, but hopefully he will be glad with the extra investment that I have made in the South Down area. On his comment in relation to taking up the guitar, if the comments from behind me were anything to go by, I don't think he would have universal support in the House for that, but certainly if he would like to make an application to the Arts Council, it will be open to him as well.
Daniel McCrossan.
Speaker, question 6.
Minister.
Mr. Speaker, plans to change the Universal Credit Contingency Fund name are currently being taken forward by officials within my department.
Mr. McCrossan.
Thank you, Minister. Minister, do you agree with me and the Cliff Edge Coalition that given the spend has increased from 1.4 million in 2020 to 2021 and then 3.4 million in 23 to 24, that this shows a significant increase in the amount of need? What are your department doing to tackle this issue and to ensure that those needs are met?
Minister.
Well, the figures that the member has indicated are stark, and this is something that we are keeping an eye on. The managed migration of claimants to universal credit through Move to UC has, as expected, led to an increase in claims. However, so far from what we see, that has increased in line with forecast demand.
We now move to topical questions, and I call Daniel McCrossan.
Thank you, Speaker. Minister, we are in a housing crisis, it is well noted, yet we have 21,000 homes across Northern Ireland that are empty. As the Minister for Housing, what are you doing to reduce the number of empty homes?
Well, Mr. Speaker, the member will be aware that I have published the housing supply strategy, and part of that strategy will deal with the issue of empty homes. It's something that I raised very early on in my tenure in this place. We obviously need to build new homes, but there are other homes out there that are not currently being used, and we will explore all options to see how we can bring those back into use, but not just current homes, but also other buildings that could potentially be transformed into housing as well.
Mr. McCrossan.
Thank you, Speaker, and I thank the Minister. You know, earlier the Minister referenced music. He's good at blowing his own trumpet, but we don't quite agree with the tune. Minister, this issue has worsened on your watch. You gave a commitment to this House in May that you'd tackle this, yet the problem has worsened. More and more people are struggling, more homes are empty. What are you actually doing to deliver a measurable plan that we can hold you to account on and see a change in this crisis?
Minister.
We have one, Mr. Speaker. It's called the Housing Supply Strategy. We have a very clear plan, and we can see already the difference that is being made, and I look forward to sharing with him some of the latest statistics around housing in Northern Ireland. But not just on this, but a number of issues. He will see how we have been able actually to deliver in this department. The measures that we have put in place in terms of housing have been significant. Intermediate rent, loan to acquire, move on accommodation, the housing supply strategy, actually getting all departments to work together, greater use of financial transactions capital, movement on the revitalisation of the housing supply strategy. All measures that I have taken, measures that were not implemented by other ministers in the past, but moves that I am making to improve access to housing and housing supply in Northern Ireland. But I'm pleased that it's not just housing that I've been able to deliver on. The member's leader in this place said that from this executive we have only had warm words, waffle and lack of delivery. Well, I'm more than happy to point to the achievements once more within this department. The Defective Premises Act passed, the Social Capital Loan Scheme introduced, the voluntary and community sector budget increased, protection for private tenancies implemented, £100 emergency fuel payment secured, 1,000 jobs delivering services for DWP created, the Housing Selection Scheme points review delivered, housing supply strategy published, our Olympic and Paralympic heroes celebrated, debt advice funding increased, intermediate rent launched, anti-poverty strategy progressed, sign language bill soon to be introduced. We've established the USNI Cultural Working Group. Charity regulation is being made easier. We've got more money for the arts, for homeless prevention, for supporting people, for the Job Start scheme. That is real and tangible delivery for people right across Northern Ireland.
Colin Crawford.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker, and I thank the Minister for his answers thus far. Minister, can I ask, how is your department working to improve access to recreational facilities and youth services, not only in Northampton but throughout Northern Ireland?
Sure.
point to your school, your club, where I've worked closely with Paul Given in the Department for Education to improve access to facilities. You can look at the Northern Ireland Football Fund and how that is being progressed, the work that we are doing through Sport NI to help with the provision and of facilities as well. Collaboration with councils and with other public sector agencies to improve access to facilities. So good work has begun, but I am aware that there is much more to do, but I look forward to delivering on that issue as well.
Mr. Crawford.
Thank you, Minister. And can I ask, how do you gather input or feedback from young people themselves when you're actually planning these services?
Minister.
Well, the member will be aware of the current consultation processes that are in place, but I agree with him that involving and hearing the voices of young people are very important, and that's why next week I look forward to doing just that with the Youth Participation Group.
Don Buchanan.
Mr. Speaker, Minister, can I ask you for an update on the United States Northern Ireland Cultural Working Group?
Mr. Speaker, the working group continues to develop a programme of events working with US partners to promote events in Northern Ireland and North America leading up to the 250th anniversary commemorations. My officials recently met with the Library of Congress to discuss practical ways they can cooperate on links between people, places and collections as part of the America 250 commemorations. So I look forward to making a number of announcements around this important work with the US in the coming weeks and months.
Mr. Buchanan.
Thank you, Minister. And would you agree that the 250th anniversary of the United States is an excellent opportunity for Northern Ireland to showcase our rich historical links? And of course, being parochial, I think on my own constituency in the Ulster American Folk Park, and where you did visit last year, but also given that the 12th of February is the centenary of the Ferguson System master patent which revolutionised the world's agriculture sector, has any consideration been given to commemorating this historic event to the possibility of a Harry Ferguson museum, given that the Ferguson Belfast Black prototype tractor built in 1933 is now back in Belfast?
Minister.
Yes, of course, and I recently was able to see that at the Ulster Transport Museum, and I encourage others to do the same as well. I always look forward to seeing how we can promote events like that and anniversaries like the one that he mentions. He also highlights rightly West Tyrone and people from West Tyrone as well. He may well be aware of John Dunlap, who printed the first copies of the Declaration of Independence, and he was from Strabane. Maybe the most famous person to come from Strabane other than Mr. McCrossan. But we also have the Mellon family from Omagh, on whose land the Ulster American Folk Park is built, and of course Thomas Mellon was born in Omagh, and his son became United States Secretary to the Treasury and United States Ambassador to the UK. So there are many local connections that we seek to promote, and hopefully that will increase the number of visits, tourism and interest in West Tyrone and Northern Ireland as a whole.
Andrew McMurray.
Mr. Speaker, and thank you to the Minister. What is the Minister's assessment of the impact the reduced value of thank you payments issued to Homes for Ukraine hosts from April 25 will have on the demand for social housing?
Minister.
Well, the member will be aware that the Department for Communities previously had responsibility for the Homes for Ukraine refugee resettlement scheme. This included a voluntary and community sector consortium which was funded and provided support to people arriving under the Homes for Ukraine scheme. From the 1st of April 2024, management of the scheme has been undertaken by TEO along with the Afghan and Syrian schemes to consolidate the work on asylum seekers and refugees. The Executive Office is the strategic lead for refugee resettlement and asylum seekers in Northern Ireland, and the transfer of the work to a single department was undertaken to facilitate a more cohesive approach to the vital work of resettling and integrating refugees into Northern Ireland society. In terms of removal of the £350 payment that the member mentions, I do not have any evidence to indicate the impact that that has had.
Mr McMurray.
Mr. Speaker, thank you to the Minister. Just in a follow-up, I mean, does the Housing Executive expect any increase in demand, or preparing for any increase in demand on this removal? Thank you, Chair.
That's not something that, to the best of my memory, has been brought to my attention, but I am aware that the UK Government's policy in relation to the processing of asylum seekers has moved a considerable number of people that would have been under the care and responsibility of mayors and the Home Office to the responsibility of the Northern Ireland Housing Executive, and I'm happy to furnish the member with those figures.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker, and thank you to the Minister for his answers so far. I want to raise my frustrations with the current Housing Executive points-based system, which is clearly failing vulnerable people. Victims of domestic abuse can and they do receive less points than their perpetrators. So, Minister, in terms of what can your department do to ensure that those in genuine need get the support when they need it?
Look, first of all, Mr. Speaker, can I say the member is absolutely right to raise this issue. It is something that has been a source of frustration to me for many years as a representative in her constituency, and so I'm happy to tell her that changes to the housing selection scheme are underway, including exploration of options for the future of intimidation points. Currently, the award of intimidation points is subject to a very specific criteria, and under the current scheme, someone who leaves their home as a result of domestic abuse can be allocated points for homelessness and primary social need points for violence or the threat of violence. However, they are not eligible for intimidation points. So I'm keen to ensure recognition for all victims of violence and those at risk or under threat of violence, including victims of domestic abuse within the selection scheme. The Housing Executive and my officials have brought forward recommendations from independent research for my consideration, and I am giving this consideration as a matter of urgency, because in my view, the intimidation point scheme needs review, it needs reform, and I'm determined to reform it.
Brownlie.
Thank you, and here. I think we've been waiting for that for quite some time, so it is certainly welcome news from yourself, Minister. But you'll know in our constituency of East Antrim, Citra provides fantastic support for women fleeing domestic abuse, but we have no safe spaces for males fleeing domestic abuse. What has your department done, or what can your department do to meet this need?
Minister.
The member raising this issue as well, and it's absolutely right that we have support for all of those who find themselves in need regardless of their gender, and this is something that I obviously will continue to work on and raise with officials, and if there are particular issues or particular geographical areas that she wishes to bring to my attention, I'm more than happy to make sure that's explored.
Minister, what discussions have you had with the Minister of Finance and Treasury to secure a portion of the Affordable Home Programme for Northern Ireland?
I'll have to come back to the member on that specifically. I have had much correspondence with the Department of Finance in relation to many areas in relation to housing, but I don't have the details on when or how often I would specifically raise that with her.
Mr. McReynolds.
I thank the Minister for his response, and that will come back to me on that. Minister, what actions are you taking to ensure the 100,000 homes outlined in the housing strategy includes a planning requirement to be able to be connected to town and city centres by public transport, reducing the amount of reliance on private vehicles?
Minister.
Obviously, we want to make sure that we are building homes where they are needed. We need to make sure that we are building homes that are accessible as well, and accessible by public transport is obviously a benefit. I would be reluctant to put additional conditions on where houses can be built. We're currently in a situation where we're wanting to increase housing supply. There are a number of limitations imposed, for example, or in place, for example, around water capacity, and I wouldn't want us not to build homes simply because they may not be connected to public transport routes. I sense that Mrs Erskine behind me is in favour of what I am saying, because in many areas in her constituency that would rule out the building of houses altogether, and I think that we have to be cognizant of the differences that exist between an urban constituency that he represents and rural constituencies that myself and Mrs Erskine represent. So what I want to do is make sure that we make it as as simple and as easy and as straightforward as possible to build homes. Yes, absolutely, that should be accessible by public transport as much as is possible, but what I wouldn't want to do is create a drag on building homes, because unfortunately there are far too many drags in the building of homes already. We need to make it as easy, as simple and as straightforward to build homes.
John Mulholland.
Would the Minister consider increasing the repayment term for in universal credit advance payments to 36 months and setting a minimum income floor below which a claimant's income cannot fall due to deductions?
More than happy to explore that and see what is possible within the boundaries that are set by the Department for Work and Pensions.
Thank you very much, Minister. Are there any other recommendations of the independent welfare review that you're considering for the upcoming budget?
Minister.
I don't think that there'll be anything that we'll be able to include in terms of the upcoming budget. There are significant proposals that are in there that come at significant cost. I look forward to sharing that information with executive colleagues shortly, and hopefully committee members as well. But I think that we need to be aware of the significant costs that some of those proposals would entail, and I think that if we look towards how we combat poverty across Northern Ireland, all of this should be taken in to consideration, and we should be looking at this in the round when that time comes.
That brings to a conclusion questions to the Minister for Communities. If members would take their ease while we change the table.